Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 108 of the Titanforge podcast. I'm Dratnus, joined by Trell and Tettles. Trell, who I need to move in his
Trell
frame.
is not in
half
frame.
Trell.
One half of a Trell. And Trell's bike, unfortunately, not in frame today, so the believers in chat for the prediction losing many points.
Brutal outcome. This week, we do not have a guest this week. We have kind of updated how often we're going to have guests, so I'd say like 80% of the time, maybe 90% of the time, we will have one. But for this week, it's just the three of us, and we will be, we've got a little bit of a mailbag episode this week. I like doing these from time to time where we just get a bunch of questions and talk about them rather than having one big question. So thanks for everybody who sent in questions. If you didn't know we were doing this, follow our Twitter next time, and you can see we post a couple days in advance what we're doing for the week and take questions. So yeah, should be a pretty good one. Before we get started with that, though, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in M+ in particular right now, because there's a little bit of stuff happening. One thing is the world's first 29 was timed once again by Andy's team. They timed the 28 on the kind of rough tyrannical week a week ago. And now, I guess 2 weeks ago, and now they timed the world first 29 on the fortified
Not
week.
fortified week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. Do you guys think there's going to be a 30 this season? I think there is for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there definitely will be. I also suspect that this season, with the projections that this season is going to be long as hell, I suspect that there will be at least 130 that is done before the end of the season, maybe multiple. I think that Necrotic Wake and Plaguefall can both hit 30.
Yeah. So there's not that many good fortified weeks on the calendar, right? There's kind of like that one is by far the best one, right? Last week. So we might be waiting till it comes around again. But I think when it does come around again, there's a good chance that, 9.1.5 will be out. Maybe people will just be doing, people will be fully BIS geared and stuff. I guess pretty much everybody's fully BIS geared right now. But, yeah, I think maybe it's possible. You know what? Maybe we're close enough to the ceiling right now that it's not. Here's a look at the top of the leaderboard right now. You can see basically all of these keys were from that fortified week. Although we're starting to see some, one tyrannical from this week. Another tyrannical from this week, so a couple of 28s are being timed this week. I don't think we're going to see any 29 tyrannicals, but maybe.
I think power is still ramping quite a bit. I think there's still a lot more power to be gained by these teams. My prediction is if that really good fort week comes back around 3 months from now, I think we're going to see a 31 as the highest key, maybe one timed 31.
One timed 31. I can get behind a timed 30. I would bet against the 31. I think it'll look
singular 31.
I think it'll look like 30, maybe a 30, and then like a couple 29s, and probably down here it turns into 28s. Would be my guess for what the leaderboard looks like at the end of the season. But I think it does depend a lot on like how much more powerful we actually get with 9.1.5 as well. Because are these groups getting stronger when that patch comes out? I guess maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good question. I don't know. I wasn't even considering that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that anybody is like max geared on live yet.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's always more upgrades to get. I think people are getting pretty close, though. I guess we could take a look at like Andy's team and see what their gear is looking like. So Andy, 252 item level, so he's still got like Sylvanas upgrades and stuff. I guess he's currently in ret gear, so can't really tell what his proc gear looks like.
He's hiding.
But yeah.
Even if he was fully geared, though, like you can always, as a tank, get a bunch of leech pieces on the same gear that was BIS before as any other spec. Avoidance, healers leech or avoidance, but DPS want avoidance for sure. Like that kind of stuff can just optimize forever for seasons. And so by the end of the Mythic Plus season, you always see the top teams having like 3 to 4 pieces each on each of their characters, and they just don't ever die because they're invincible.
Yeah, I think that is something. So there's definitely still some percentage points to be eked out by those players. Of course, in sort of related news to that group, because if you look at the top of the leaderboards, I mean, that group has been dominating. They have 6 of the top 6 current Mythic Plus runs, which is completely absurd. And also 2 of their members just swapped from pieces to method. So both Andy and Wildly left pieces and joined method. So Wonder if
There was
that-
a lot of memery about that.
Yeah, I think there was some bad blood between them and Pieces, right? Like,
It seems like it, yeah.
yeah. So we'll see if that ends up being a better situation for all guilds and parties involved. Obviously, I'm always
I
hopeful
hope it
for
is
that.
a better situation. Yeah, that everybody is happy with the solution that they've come to.
Yeah.
Oh, for those that don't know, Lone Crusader, the Paladin player, is
That's
Andy
Andy
Brew.
Brew. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he picked up that in Mythic Plus very recently and just busted out some world first keys, which is always very impressive to see. I
Yeah.
think Paladin's a little bit stronger than a lot of people give it credit for, but Andy's definitely a great player.
Yeah.
I think the biggest interest point for me is the fact that they're not running any like major damage cooldowns in their composition. Like there are some teams that are playing with like a Guardian Druid plus a Holy Paladin plus a Moonkin, and like those comps, like obviously you're pulling very strictly around your CDs, whether it be Ashen, whether it be Enkarn, that kind of thing. But they were running literally none of those. They were playing Sub Rogue, Frost Mage, Windwalker Monk, Restoration Shaman, Prot Pally. So like their best offensive cooldown is a 1 minute Bone Dust Brew.
Yeah. Because it's not even, it's a Kyrian prop pally as well, so it's not even like an Ashen Hallow from your tank or anything like you see from prop pallies in Raid. It is instead that like consistent damage and control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have such a good damage profile spread though, because like the Windwalker alone can cover most AoE in the game. And everything else is like utility and single target funnel. And the Resto Shaman and Prop Pally also add a little bit of layer of AoE on top of that Windwalker. They both do really good AoE damage. And they can allow the other two classes to just slam single target. So it's really cool to see all that synergy.
Yeah, it is a cool group to see working. And this entire season, like every group has so much cool stuff going on with it as well. I would say like healer is the spot where there's the least going on, and even there, obviously, Resto Shaman, even a Holy Priest on our friend Automatic Jack, doing pretty well at the top of the boards. But then in DPS and tanks, there's really like, I mean, everything is happening on these roles, which is very cool to see.
Do you think that it's going? Okay, so I mean, we had this at the beginning of last season, right? Where everything. Okay, tanks were like largely Vengeance Demon Hunters, but we had one of every single healer in the top 20, and then fucking Holy Paladin just ruined it all. Do we think that this is going to be something that's going to happen again?
Well, I think Holy Paladin is already in that. Like, if you actually looked at the players, like the only reason it doesn't look like Holy Paladin is ruining it all is because there's one Resto Shaman who has 10
group
of the top 20, right?
Yeah.
But that's one person. I think if you looked at like if you look at the top 20 healers, for instance, spec or class role leaderboards, all healers, right? The top one is a Resto Shaman, and then we've got Automatic Jack on that priest in 7th. We got another Resto Shaman at 19th. The other 17 are all paladins, so I think it's already pretty.
Is that the lag bug OCE? Wow.
I believe that is, yeah.
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 Man.
Yeah, they shot up this week. I think I saw they've been playing a lot.
Yeah, him and Skylark, the Obey Alliance MDI team, they were pushing. They actually were getting some really high runs as well. Very good team.
Yeah, you can see they got some 28s on the board, so and including the top 28 Tyrannical run right now. Gamers indeed. So all in all, pretty cool season to watch some M+. Of course, even other M+ you could watch is this weekend, the Last Stand tournament, where 6 teams, including Ambition, Aster, one of Aster's teams, so not the team... Aster has like 4 teams in the Chinese MDI. One of them already qualified through their tournament. One of them is in the Last Stand tournament, Aster A. That one should be good. And then Dr. J's team, Shelly's team, bunch of great teams playing this weekend in it's sort of great push
Reload
style.
Esports.
Yeah, Reload Esports, who they got like a lot of they lost a lot of series 0-2 that were really close series actually. If you looked at each individual map, so they're a team to look out for absolutely. That's on YouTube.com/Warcraft this weekend. Should be pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, what time does that start?
Noon Central, 1 Eastern, 10 Pacific tomorrow.
Noon Yeehaw time.
Noon Yeehaw time.
Noon Yeehaw
which
time.
is,
Okay, thanks. That's my time.
7 CEST.
Yeah, they call it like 19 CEST because they can count.
Yeah.
They can count higher than us over there.
Yeah, we can only count to 12.
Yeah. Yeah, should be a
Well,
good time.
I just did calculations of time zones, so I'm impressive.
All right, let's move on to the start of our mailbag, which our first question comes from Discord from Warax, who asks, if the MDI casting team formed an MDI team, how well do you think they would do? So this is me, Tettles, Zyro, Nagura, and Automatic Jack. I think
All right,
Dreadnought's
so
gonna
who's
have to
tanking?
tank.
I would have to
Yeah,
tank,
who's
Dreadnought's
right?
have to tank. Yeah.
So Tells is playing bear.
No. I have done keys of Tettle's Guardian. that is quite banned.
So we have every role.
We do have
right?
every role. We have Nagura would have to play like melee, probably, right?
We could play. Nagura could play AF.
Zyro could play
Mage.
AF. Yeah, Zyro would probably
no,
play
no.
Mage. Yeah.
Zyro could play Mage. Nagura could play AF, and I could play Moonkin. The problem with our MDI team is that we would have like almost zero flexibility. I think that we could have made the top 24.
I think we could have made top 24 as well. I don't know if we could have taken that many games off of that many teams though. Much higher
I could
than
play
that.
Hunter. I could play MM Hunter.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, if somebody else can tank, I could cover like, Rogue, DH, whatever.
Sure, I could play Guardian in the MDI.
Yeah, that wasn't particularly popular, but it could work.
It would work.
Well,
You would just
again,
do a little
we're
bit
trying
less
to get
single
top
target.
24. Okay, we're trying to see like what is our best case scenario here.
I think in your best interest, you would play what's comfortable, and you guys could do pretty well.
Yeah, I
in,
think
like,
we could.
this hypothetical scenario.
We could probably get like maybe top 4 in a group weekend, maybe. Probably lose to I don't know. It would depend. Like all 5 of us individually have had good M plus results at some point or other, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Although I never really have as a tank, so that would be a question mark. But I'm sure I could figure it out. Tanking's
Yeah,
easy.
I think that one of the big advantages that we would have is like we do actually know how to approach the dungeons in a way that we could be able to at least get top 24.
The top 24, I think we could do. Yeah. All right. It's an interesting hypothetical, though. Would be
I would pay to see that. That'd be fun.
There are definitely some seasons where the MDI casting team would have fared better than others. I think that this season it's been a lot more competitive, so we would do worse. But there have definitely been some seasons where we're like, oh shit, there are a lot of teams that we could beat.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I agree with your point that like this season there were like 11 teams that played in the group weekends that like looked really good, right?
They would have beat our ass.
They
Oh
would-
yes,
they-
we
yeah.
would have been destroyed.
Yeah. All right, next question comes from Itchy Legs in Discord, who asks, I only have limited time to play, 2 or 3 hours per week, so nailing down a set lineup of players is really tough. I play Bear Tank. I really only get 1 or 2 pieces of loot per week, like 1 M plus done for a Great Vault, or getting lucky from end to dungeon drops. Are there any strategies for getting into groups easier with low item level? This person's currently at 231 Bear Tank, and convincing people not bad. It's a struggle to push my own key or even get groups able to complete a weekly no leaver 15.
That's a tough one. I think you have to try to find gamers that have the same availability that you do somehow, and that's really hard with that.
Yeah, the problem is like there are a lot of people who only play for 2 or 3 hours per week, but finding people who play that little that also like can play the same 2 or 3 hours as each other is really tough, right? Like that's if it's like 8 to 9 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday, okay, you can probably find people who have that availability, but
Honestly, I don't think you could find a group of 5 specifically that would have that exact availability. I think that's unrealistic. I think you'd have to have a pool of like 15 to 20 players that all are very low hour gamers and they're available at different times, but sometimes they'll probably line up and you'd have to just work around that group. But that being said, doing 15s, you can do that with different people. You don't really need a set group for that kind of thing.
yeah,
But the hardest part is just finding the players.
I know there are some M plus group finding discords out there. It's like Mythic Plus Friends. Quick
I think
made a Discord for finding M plus players.
Oh
Yeah?
yeah, maybe.
Did you
for
really?
quick system.
Forgot
I
about
don't, I don't really
Yeah.
know what the deal is with that. Maybe that.
I don't know how useful that is. I know that there's some established community Mythic Plus. Mythic Plus Friends is the one I know about that people. So if you Google that, you can maybe find it and join that Discord and see if you can find people whenever you're available.
I think that like your goal here is just be able to complete the keys that you are trying to do. I think that your first thing, like first and foremost, is trying to get your item level up at 231. Like you are definitely able to do 15s, but getting people to like convincing people that are like a high enough caliber to be able to also do a 15 with a 231 bear tank is going to be tough, is what I would say. I think that you keep pushing your own key. Pushing your own key is definitely the best way if you're just trying to use LFG and not going through these alternative methods like Dratnus was talking about. But you were certainly fighting an uphill battle by being that low gear.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like, if you're getting one item per week, your item level just goes up very slowly, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Next question comes from Slaggy in Discord, who asks, as patches draw on my guild's attendance for raid, currently progressing heroic Sylvanas, as patches draw on, my guild's attendance for raid has gone down where on any given week we can have from 9 to 14 players. We're trying to recruit more, but nothing seems to work. Guild Finder doesn't return anything. Trade chat spam brings people that leave shortly after getting gear. What are good ways to recruit players that will stick around in your guild?
It's also a hard question. We're getting some good ones. I think all those tools are pretty likely to fail, honestly. I think the only real way you do it is on WoW Progress at the moment. And you list your guild, or you look for a guild as a player on WoW Progress.
I know that's the way it works for like mythic guilds, but for a guild that's progressing heroic Sylvanas, I actually don't know where the best way is to source players.
I know that whenever I used to be in this position forever, like this is a very long time ago, people would put in like group finder, guild group progressing heroic Sylvanas, right? And so then you could potentially get a different type of player, right? Or you would get somebody who understands that you're trying to progress, or maybe understands like what you're looking for. What are good ways to recruit players that will stick around in your guild? I think, as funny as this sounds, I think you lie to the people that you're recruiting, and I think you tell them that you have aspirations for doing Mythic Raid, and you string them along, and
Dude,
you continue to.
This is so messed up.
This is messed up. But this, how are you going to get people to join a heroic Sylvanas raid guild? Because the problem is that people are going to be tapering off unless they have aspirations for continuing to play the game. Because a lot of people, like once they get AOTC, they're like, "Oh, that was it. That's all I wanted to do." Right?
Well,
So they'll quit. So if you tell people that you have aspirations for doing Mythic, you're going to get a different quality of like a different style of player who wants to continue to play the game as well.
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate to endorse like lying as a guild strategy. I do agree though that like a lot of guilds do this unintentionally. Like I know so many guilds that say they're going to start mythic raiding soon, that never start mythic raiding, right?
Exactly.
And that like it does draw people towards your guild. I think instead like factoring around like, oh hey, once we get heroic Sylvanas down, and if we can get to 20 people, like we'll do heroic or mythic Terragru and stuff. We'll try and get a mythic box for everybody. I actually don't think that's like you even need to lie like that. That's if you can kill heroic Sylvanas with 20 people, you can kill mythic First 3 with those 20 people as well.
You could even like invite pugs in to kill mythic.
Yeah, now that things are cross realm. Yeah. I mean that's the thing, right? Like is like I mean Tails makes a good point that there are some people who are just trying to get AOTC each patch and then they're gonna dip. But like if that's not you, right? If you're somebody who legitimately, wants to raid and do heroic each week, there presumably will be other people who have similar goals to you, right? And so you're trying to form a guild with those sorts of people. It is definitely just tough as the patch draws on to do that, right? You kind of get it is sort of cyclical, right? You'll have more people coming in at the start of a patch and then going down. But the nice thing about heroic, right, is you can do it with 10 people. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, I know. Again,
that is funny though. You say they unintentionally advertise that they're going to do mythic because that is so true. Like I've seen so many heroic guilds do that, and it's like because when you killed the last boss on heroic, you're like, oh well, the next step is mythic. You're just going to go kill the first mythic boss, but then you don't realize the whole world unlocks of trying to manage a mythic guild and how tedious and awful that is.
Yeah,
maintaining 20 plus players and then replacing players when you need to is hard.
Yeah. So the reason that I even said potentially lie or maybe stretch the truth or something like that is because like they already said that the guild's like members are already starting to wane, right? Like the interest is starting to draw to a close. The amount of people are starting to fade away. And so they're looking for people who have a new vested interest in this guild, or they're looking to try to get new bodies into the guild and potentially even push the guild into a further state. And so I guess lying, like just like straight lying, isn't like the best approach here. But I do think that there is some exaggeration of the truth that could be getting people that are more interested into your guild. Like at least get the guild in front of them, as opposed to saying, "Yeah, we are a heroic progression guild," because it's hard because there's so many heroic progression guilds that have already killed Sylvanas. So why would they join yours?
Yeah, and you could always consider as well going and joining one of those guilds. You know, if you're if you're not too attached to your current guild, you know, sometimes there are parts of the patch cycle where guilds die off, right? And other guilds are in the position where they're actually pretty desperate for people. So you could join one that does that if yours is getting too small.
I have a strong suspicion this is going to be a very unpopular opinion by me, but
I mean, I do want to like connect the dots though, because like it's true about getting into guilds, just like it is getting into a job in real life. Like it's always somewhat exaggerated. The job asks for 5 years of experience for an entry level thing. You're like, oh well, how do I get experience? You have to get a job to get experience. Oh well, how do I get a job? Oh, you have to have experience. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, at some point you have to make up. Like, you have to like talk yourself up, and the job is talking itself up, and everything like that.
Yeah, you gotta be like, oh yeah, I did that one time. I'm a master at it.
Yeah.
True.
Your resume is just full of just bold-faced lies. Yeah.
Everybody's resumes are full of bold-faced lies.
Yeah, it's tough because you know if it's not something your guild would ever actually do, like you're just setting yourself up for losing those people as soon as it becomes clear you're not doing Mythic. But I was in a guild that basically advertised this and was never actually going to kill Mythic bosses at the start of Legion. And like I didn't really realize we were never going to kill Mythic bosses until we did 2 hours of Mythic Nifendra progress after we killed Heroic Xavius one week, and we never got the boss below 50% health, and like it was clear just that it wasn't going to happen with that set of players. And I was like, oh okay, all right, you know, this is
well.
Not it.
You had aspirations individually to join a better guild, like what he was asking.
Right.
He seems like he wants to improve his guild, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you were asking me about what you should do as a person, I would say leave your guild.
Ultimately, that's the thing. Is like if there's something about your guild that you like and you like the way it's working, you know, ideally that is something you can then use to get other people who might like that as well to be interested in joining.
Sure.
Anyways, it's definitely a tough situation and one that we're, I think, all several years detached from being in a similar spot. So
yeah, it's true.
Take it with a grain of salt. Yeah.
Try to think back and like try to connect to the reality here.
Next question comes from Decker in Discord, who asks, Sims! ! As we discussed in Guild Chat a few weeks ago, there isn't a great way to sim for M+, but I'd be interested to hear how you guys go about aggregating different sims with different lengths and different numbers of targets to form one gear set that you keep equipped for a run. Also interested how this cross-applies to simming for KT or SLG or the 9, and what you do differently there.
All right, as an authority on simming for balanced druids, that is grossly over-exaggerating what I actually do. So basically, it's like...
Speaking of lying for job interviews.
That's a good one. I think that what I normally do is I'll end up simming like multiple different parameters, like one target for 3 minutes, like 5 to 8 targets. It really just kind of depends for 40 seconds, and then 5 to 8 targets for like a minute, and just kind of see where the discrepancies lie in all of those things. I also make sure that like I have Bloodlust turned off for a lot of them as well to just like not conflate the data. Typically there will be like, whenever it comes to gear decisions, your gear decisions are normally so minute and they don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, as long as you're running something that is like close to what Raidbots is telling you. Whenever it comes to like talents and legendaries and Covenant choice, it becomes a lot more nuanced, because whenever those things are factored in, you have to, there's like some level of viability for like how dungeons play that you have to factor in, whether or not it is good or bad. But whenever it comes to gear, like forming one gear set that you keep equipped for a run, typically I'm just going to end up like favoring what sims the highest on like a single target 3-minute encounter, and then just kind of roll with it, unless there is some stat that is like grossly better for AoE, which in that case then I'll like pepper in some of that gear. Maybe I'll sim like 5 targets for 1 minute and see if there's like massive discrepancies in like what gear the like raid bots or whatever is trying to tell me to run, and like maybe then I'll just run something that's maybe a little bit more AoE oriented. But you can only mess up your gear so bad. Realistically, it's in terms of like what you have equipped, you're never going to mess it up by like a substantial amount. And then whenever it comes to simming for like KT or SLG or the 9, again, I still just normally stick with the single target stuff, especially for things like KT, SLG, and the 9, where you do have like one. Okay, maybe not the 9, but like you do have a priority target that you're supposed to be hitting a lot of the time. So that's a weird nuance.
I think those are a lot of really good points. I think a lot of people out there are probably thinking, oh, why don't you just sim Dungeon Slice? And I think we should talk about that, because Dungeon Slice is not a great way to really get a full grasp on what you're going to do in a dungeon. It's just impossible to sim every single thing that happens in a dungeon across 5 players and across all the different ways you can pull the dungeon and the time between pulls, all the downtime. There's just so many factors that Dungeon Slice can't do. How do you guys feel about it?
D-Slice is like really good for some specs in particular. I think Hunter and Rogue have some of the best D-Slice APLs, but ultimately like the way that Dungeon Slice works out is like it sends you a wave of trash, and then it sends you like, all right, now you have to fight 2 targets. And then it sends you another wave of trash. And then, all right, now you have to fight a boss for 2 minutes. And then it sends you another wave of trash. And like, sure, you're going to be optimizing an APL, but you're only optimizing it for the Dungeon Slice itself. And like some of those APLs are, the action priority lists in raid bots are optimized for like that specific situation. And it's going to give you like the highest amount of DPS. But the highest amount of DPS isn't always the most amount of time that's going to be saved in a pull. And so it can be disingenuous in that part, especially if you're playing like a sub rogue, man. Like your top DPS isn't always like what is going to save you the most time in a dungeon.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You have to be really wary of.
The Sims would probably have you like Shuriken Storm Black Powdering over and over and over on like 6 target pulls, when in reality you need to be eviscerating the Shard of Halkias in that pull or something instead. And you're going to do a lot less damage, but the pull's going to be much faster, which changes all the other Sims for the other 4 players in the group because of that faster pace on that pull. So then it's like, it's just unreliable. So you have to just like do a certain amount of target Sims, like Tettles was saying.
And on top of that, there are some pulls that you want to be like overkilling the small mobs on. Like there are pulls where the small mobs are the most important ones to die, and you would rather have the big mob or a boss or whatever else be the last thing to kill, and you would rather overkill the trash because there are obliterators casting on your tank, or there are other like trash mobs that are beating you up in a way that it was kind of unforeseen. So you'd rather put a lot more damage into AoE than priority cleaving and costing yourself some time, because then your tank doesn't have to kite. And that's also something that Dungeon Slice doesn't factor in, is if your tank has to kite, that is a massive damage loss, so you would rather overkill the trash so then your tank doesn't have to kite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my take on this is a little different. My take on this is, you know, when you're simming for single target, usually you're trying to answer a question, right? That question is, what is the best gear to use in this situation? And sims are a great resource, particularly for single target, for answering that question of like, is crit better or is haste better? Is this item an upgrade or a side grade or downgrade? It's really good at figuring that out for single target in most cases. But it's actually rarely the best answer or the best way to answer that question in an AoE or complicated raid fight situation. In those sorts of cases, it's like you can run those sorts of sims, but they are likely to lead you astray. And I would say they shouldn't actually be the first way that you go about trying to answer a question about like, what should I wear for a dungeon or for a specific raid boss that is not single target. So I would actually use statistics instead, as if you're looking for like an easy way to figure out what your best gear is. I would say sims are more likely to give you a wrong answer, that like to lead you astray, than just a statistics would be. So my favorite site for this is the subcreation site. So like mplus.subcreation.net, for instance, for M+. You could just go over there and click on your spec, and you can see pretty quickly what legendaries people are using, what talents people are using for M+, and all those sorts of things. And there's a raid version of the site as well, raid.subcreation.net, that you can use to figure out like Kel'Thuzad, right? What are people using on Kel'Thuzad? Now, depending on what level of the game you're playing at, you might be playing at a high enough level where there aren't public statistics available yet for certain bosses. I've been in this position on like Unok Progress is the only boss I've ever been progressing early enough that there weren't public parses available.
What a flex.
Yeah.
What a flex.
That one, I was, for a brief period of time, I was doing world first progression on that boss because like 30 guilds, and we're working on it, and nobody had killed it yet. And then like the day after we started Prague, Pieces killed it. We had it at like 90%. We didn't quite get world first. It was close though. But so in that case, you actually may need to use Sims to answer those questions. But it's actually, if you want to use Sims to get an accurate answer to what are you supposed to do on a fight that has weird criteria of what priority targets are out there and what number of targets there are. I did this for Zool as well. You actually have to go in and like screw around not just with the sim criteria, but also with your own specs action priority list, and make sure that it is casting the eviscerates instead of the black powders. Make sure on Unat it was making sure that it was casting like a full priority damage set into the single target and not doing earthquakes and AoE. It was just earth shocking and doing that kind of stuff. And you can set those up, but like that is a lot of work, and unless you are working on a boss that you can't just look at statistics for, I would say just look at statistics, and there's a very good chance that the people in the world top 20 guilds that have already killed that boss or whatever will have had good ideas about the boss, and then rather than trying to use Sims to come up with a better idea, it's like having an idea and testing it out in practice, or maybe then using a targeted Sim to investigate it further is going to be a better result for you than just like doing what you would do on single target, right? Which is just run a sim. On single target, that is almost always just a great answer.
Yeah, I haven't had like, so since Sepha's secret hasn't been in the game, so basically since Legion, I haven't really had any problems with this. Like I felt like I was at like a crossroad for whether I should be running like one legendary versus another, like what sets should I be running. I feel like you can only just take something that's more well-rounded and more optimized for everything, and you can't really mess it up. And I think it was a lot more nuanced whenever you could gear swap, especially in Legion, where there were a bunch of different criteria where things were a lot better for certain situations. But now you just run something that's well-rounded.
Or really, yeah, just copy whatever limiter echoes people playing your spec did on a certain fight. It's hard to go wrong. Yeah.
Maw Rattle. Evade runs Maw Rattle and everything. Run Maw Rattle.
Third Eye of the Jailer. Gang.
Don't run Maw Rattle, please.
Next question
Maw Rattle
is unattributed. Don't know if that's Tettles' fault or if this is anonymous. Okay, it's also from Decker. All right. Who asked, how do you get information on a fight when a raid or dungeon is first coming out? Okay, so this is kind of, we sort of covered this a little bit. In week 1 or 2 of the next patch, what do you do to figure out strats, mechanics, utility before they've been nailed down and posted in publicly available guides? So
streams.
Yeah.
Streams are big.
Watching VODs of, again, if you're not in, Limit or Echo, watching what they did on fights is a big way to get a huge idea. And then
what I was doing in Nathria was I was playing Windwalker, so I was watching Trill's VOD, and I would slow it down to like 0.75% or 0.75 speed on the VOD, and I would watch his opener, and I would watch all of his burst windows on like the Sludge Fist fight and see what he did like 10 seconds before each pillar, and then like during the pillar, and then so on, how he like moved his character around. Like that's probably the best way to do it, as when there's no Warcraft logs to look off of if you're in that boat. And also having multiple perspectives to compare between the two can even give you an edge higher than both those players, because then you're taking both of their best ideas and combining them in that case.
I would say obviously streams are really good. What do you normally do to prep for Race to World First stuff, Dratnos?
Like for talking about Race to World First?
Yeah, just like okay. So I mean, obviously we're prepping Mythic for both of ourselves and for Race to World First casting. Normally, I mean, I do it in tandem. I don't know what you do, but do you like? I watch PTR VODs before the raid even comes out on Mythic and try to like really understand what's the difference between Heroic and Mythic, because I already have the Heroic week knowledge of like what the fights do normally, and so then I'll go back and watch normally Kalamazi's testing for the Mythic bosses and be like, okay, so this is the Mythic mechanic. This is how this makes this fight work. Maybe these are some potential overlaps of things that I'm looking out for. Yeah,
PTR testing is definitely a valuable resource. I do PTR testing with my guild, so I have an idea from that, and then just you develop the information as the World First racers learn it as well. You're just watching it and trying to pick it up as well. It can be tough though. It can be hard to learn things by watching rather than by doing, depending on who you are. That just may or may not work out as well for you.
Normal PTR testing, very good though. I will admit that is a
very
good resource, especially for like showing up during Heroic Week and not being a total potato.
Yeah. All right.
The only downside is PTR testing is during the day, and so most people can't make it.
Right.
Well,
it's
the normal one is across a weekend. That's why. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
you're
I
talking
see what
about
you mean.
normal PTR testing.
Well, normal
yeah.
PTR testing at least gets you in front of the boss.
Yeah, that's true. That can be useful. All right. Let's move on to our tip of the week, and then we will move on to the. So those were all questions from our Discord, and then we will move on to our questions from Twitter. But first, it's tip of the week time, and my tip of the week is there's some fun that has been sent my way. Well, that I saw in Discord that may get detected at some point soon and removed, and I guess may sort of be exploiting. I don't know, man. It's cool though. I figured I'd share it with you guys. So this is a Guardian of the First One's healing log, and this is a tank that is absorbing the entirety of the like magic smash on them using the Mott trinket. The Mott trinket, it absorbs a certain amount of damage, right? The Sigil of Warding.
That's actually a Windwalker, by the way.
Oh my goodness, it is in fact a Windwalker, yeah. A Windwalker that is taunting and taking the whole thing or something.
They're solo soaking. Bro, Windwalkers have an immunity now. I can do mechanics and raid.
So, it absorbs a certain amount of damage, but apparently this trinket will always fully absorb the hit that goes through the absorb, right? So, like, it absorbs 9,000 damage, but whatever hit actually gets through that 9,000, it will be fully absorbed. So you can use it to to do this, and here's the HPS for the whole raid again. You can see just by pressing that stone skin, they did it twice.
It surprises absolutely nobody that Windwalkers are the people that are abusing this shit.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's I always think whenever people find interactions like that, it's really cool, though. It is something.
Yeah, that one is pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll get fixed or something at some point. But if you never see a patch note about it, next tier, look for spots to abuse it as well.
I'm getting a Fate Scribe trinket.
Yeah, maybe you'll earn a week-long vacation from World of Warcraft as well if Blizzard decides to crack down on it as well. All right.
We'll send your character to Toldgor in the
Yeah,
prison.
send it over to Toldgor. All right, Trell, what is your tip of the week?
All right, so mine's a little bit late, but it was about storming. So I was playing Necrolord this last week on the Fort storming week, the few days I got to push. And if you're Necrolord, the next time storming comes around, I advise playing the Marileth Soulbind if you're ever in melee, because you can fleshcraft like right before the tornadoes spawn. If you fleshcraft where they're spawning, you'll just insta-soak them for the group. You won't be brought out of fleshcraft because of this ultimate form Soulbind. And then for 3 seconds after, you can soak any other tornadoes around for free as well. So what I would normally do is I'd wait for tornadoes to spawn during the pull, then hit my fleshcraft as the tank on top of them just to protect my melee as long as I could.
A selfless act. Yeah, this effect's actually really powerful in a lot of cases. It was good for you could use it in a DR to like if you couldn't get over the spike walls in Painsmith, and just soak one and keep channeling your fleshcraft afterwards.
Yeah, true.
Dude, our DK just IVF'd and stood at it.
Yeah, that works too.
He IVF'd and then just channeled fleshcraft and stood there.
Yeah, if you IVF, then you don't need the ultimate form, but ultimate form gives you the stun immune as well. All right, and then let's take a look at Tettles' clip of the week, which comes from Yummy TV, aka Growl, guest of the show last week. If anybody listening to this now didn't catch last week's show, I think it was a banger. You should definitely go check it out.
Oh yeah,
this is good with audio.
All right, I will put the audio on, and here we go.
You did actually.
I mean, so initially Yoda's talking about something that's kind of related, but not super related.
Oh, I got stormed?
Context.
Okay, wait, that's actually epic. Wait, that's the move.
I went too early, I guess.
I took the thing, but I got stormed, and I only went up a little bit.
Bro?
You don't know about that?
He actually blew my fucking mind whenever he did that. I was like, huh? He just jump?
You can jump, and it won't hit your group when your bomb explodes?
I actually saw someone do that on a stream the other day, and I thought I missed something, but that makes so much more sense now that you can just jump and do that. That's awesome.
He did. I was sitting there looking at him, and I was like, are you not going up? And then he just jumps, and I was like, huh?
Can you just do that? Can you do that with the other cast as well from the boss? Like the group-wide explosion damage?
Maybe.
No idea.
Okay.
No idea.
I know you. Okay,
Uh,
here's. You can do it on Fate Scribe as well. You know the mythic beams that connect the rune to the middle of the room? You can just jump over that.
I heard that was fake and that it was just inconsistent hitbox. But
I've done it reliably, but it requires
Precision
MLG
gaming.
Fortnite gaming mechanics to time it properly.
Maybe next week I'll have some more saucy tech. I've been experimenting with some shit in Mist of Tyrannus Scythe. There's been some holes in a maze, and I think I found one of the dwarf holes. So you have to have a very small character model to be able to tag these mobs through these walls. But I need to go back through there and explore some more.
Yeah, it's spots in the maze where the floor of the wall is high enough that a dwarf or gnome is like shorter than it, and you can target mobs just through the terrain that's under the wall instead of just
in very
through the wall.
specific spots.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back through there. I found one of them. Maybe I'll have a good tip of the week next week as well.
I saw the
they
clip of you finding
disabled
one. Yeah.
Too bad they disabled the Bergie toy this week in Mythic Plus.
So messed up. They'll just play dwarves.
Yeah.
They'll actually just play dwarves instead of using a toy. They nerfed nerf.
All right. Let's move on
Bergie.
to Twitter Q&A. So we've got a lot of these. They'll be a little bit more rapid fire than the Discord ones. Of course, in Twitter, form with limited characters sort of fits. First question comes from Frank, who asks, "How was your day?" Huh. All right. How was your day, Dettles?
My day's been pretty good. Cooked some food, went to the gym, laid on my couch and played TFT.
Oh, let's go. You playing TFT like from a controller on your couch, or bring your mouse and keyboard over or something?
No, I'm playing on fucking trackpad.
A trackpad? Okay.
Yeah. I like to severely handicap my performance, although I am still Masters 200 LP at this point. So.
No big deal.
Moonkin players and playing on trackpads. What a duo.
Well, you have an experience with this?
Charles, how's your day been?
Oh, it's been fine. I had a busy day at work, and then I went to the dentist, but we're good. No cavities, so
Congratulations.
we're happy.
My day's been good
How's your day,
too.
Tratnus?
Yeah, rolled out of bed much later than I'm going to have to tomorrow. So tomorrow I will not be as happy, but feeling good for now.
Yeah.
All right, our next...
This is this is the start of my day.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. Next question comes from Lee, who asks, what are things that need to be incorporated into your group to go from pushing 15s to doing 20s on good push weeks?
That's
This is actually a big jump as well.
factors.
It's like double the health and damage at 20s than it is at 15s. Like 60% more or something, 70% more.
Yeah, honestly, I think the majority of the thing that needs to improve going from 15s to 20s is just each individual player playing their class as efficiently as they can. I think you can do 20s as pretty much any comp. Actually, you can just do them as any comp straight up. And even less than mythic gear, probably heroic geared, you could do 20s, I would say. But if each player is playing their class, not missing any GCDs, not sitting on cooldowns for multiple minutes, using all their defensives at the right times, almost on cooldown if possible, and then you're going to time 20s.
I think also, if you were capable of timing a 15, if you're somewhere in the 245 range, you can time a 20. Just by holding W straight through the dungeon.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on how capable you are of timing a 15, right? Like, if it's close, then you're going to lose on a 20, right?
But it shouldn't be close on a 15 at 245 item level. Like, there's a reason that there's the Dratnus routes and stuff like that, and there's these very
those should work on
to-
plus 20s. Yeah,
exactly. They're easy to follow routes that don't involve a lot of skill. Obviously, there are some decisions that you have to make in regards to okay, I have to kick this obliterator before my tank gets bolted straight into the ground. But
I think that's the big thing.
I think that
there's a lot of mechanics you can't ignore at plus 20 that you can at plus 15. And frontals that'll hit players and take them for 40% of their health are going to be killing people on 20s.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. So I think those are there's not everything. There's a lot of there's way more stuff that you need to worry about on like a plus 28 than a plus 20, but a lot of mechanics do get kind of added to that important category at plus 20. So learning which those are, it is. Like,
I also
fumbles
think if
and
it's a
ruts.
guild group doing 15s, there's probably a lot of downtime in between the pulls. And as you shave off that time, it really adds up. Like you'll shave off several minutes off the key once you start pulling instantly into the next pull. Once people know what they're going to do, like I think the fastest way to get around that is just prepare everyone beforehand. And if you're the tank player listening to this, which I kind of have a feeling you are, you're going to have to link your route like 10 times to your guild group. Make sure that they even have MDT installed, and then teach them how to understand the route so that they can figure out how it's going to go beforehand.
Yeah, or a lot of people are just there's under no circumstances they're going to click an MDT link, and you're just going to have to run the dungeon and like tell them what is about to happen, and then do that a couple times, and then they'll eventually get it.
Yeah, so tell them also to slam their offensive cooldowns on CD. That will save you a lot of time.
Yeah. JB had a tweet about like just press them on cooldown. Like literally, unless the pack is like one mob and it's at 10% health, literally just press your offensive cooldowns. All right, next question comes from John, who asks, I'd love to hear your worst and best pug experience in Season 2. What is the craziest or weirdest thing someone did that went great or ruined the key? Anybody got one? I got one if you guys want to think for a bit.
I do. You can start though.
Okay. Recently, my guild, we were looking for a tank to do like a weekly key. And so we invite one from the group finder. They join the group and they say, right at the start, they're like, I will tolerate absolutely no toxicity in this key, especially from guild groups. And then right before we started the key, one of our guildies was like, BRB 1 minute before we start. And the tank goes, maybe you should have thought about that before you said you were ready for Mythic Plus. So we just kicked him and found a different one.
Is he a robot?
I don't know, man. I was just like, what is this person's deal, man?
That's funny.
What?
Yeah.
How is that real?
So the first ready check is just so everyone's going to click ready no matter what. So
well, I don't think that we even passed a ready check or anything. I think it was just like, I'm not even sure. I don't even remember. It was so bizarre. It was like their first sentence joining the group was about not tolerating toxicity, and their like second sentence was just, like so jerky. I don't know. Okay. Tettles, you want? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was doing like after Race to World First, whenever we were done with that, I was pugging DOS, like infinite the other sides, because I needed the IQD, right? And I queue into this group, and we do I want to say it was like the second pull or something like that. And the tank just like leaves the group after he dies. And I'm just like, what is going on, man? And it's just like, and then he's just like standing there, like still inside the instance after you released, because we like full wiped, right? So he died, we full wiped, and he's like standing there at the instance. And he just types in say chat, invite me back. And I'm just like, what is going on?
He rage quit and then wanted to.
And then I suggest invited him back, and then it's just like he joins back, and we continue to do the dungeon. Like we depleted the shit out of the key, but I was just like so bewildered that actually happened. He's just like, invite me back, and I'm like,
I kind of understand this. It's like, you die and you're just like, oh man, this is so bad. You leave the group and you're like, no, I'm not actually that person, right? All right, reinvite me.
It was just like, huh.
That one is actually a little relatable,
yeah.
Yeah. Good for them for like trying to make it up to the group after.
Charles, do you have a pug experience to share?
Honestly, I didn't really pug this season at all, but I did have one from season 1
Go ahead.
of this expansion, and it was while I was leveling my tanks in the first few weeks through like normal Plaguefall and all that, I was leveling my paladin or something and like a normal Halls of Atonement at like level 52 or something, and I was pulling so large that 3 of the players in the group got actually angry with me, and they were like, please slow down, I want to enjoy the dungeon. And they like left the group eventually because I kept pulling the entire dungeon.
Yeah, it's tough because like I kind of understand like that's one of the biggest reasons I don't like pugging dungeons in general, is because I don't like being in groups where people want the dungeon to be paced differently than each other. because like my preference would always be to go fast, but like I don't want to be, I know some people are trying to chill, right? So like it's tough.
Yeah, but I'm trying to level fast, you know.
Right, I get you. Yeah, I definitely think like particularly if it's like a tank and they can solo the dungeon anyways, and you're just along for the ride. Like I don't know. I think
I wonder if your boy Branderp's got some good experiences this season. That guy pugged all his 20s on
he
a red
pugs a lot.
tally.
Yeah,
He was tweeting about it.
guilty of mine. Yeah, some nice IO there. He got 2400 as well. I think that was not pugging though, but like in PvP.
Oh
anyways.
shit! Yeah, that guy ends.
Yeah.
Good player.
All right. Next question comes from Freya, who asks, "What do you think went right and wrong with this seasonal affix, and how/what can Blizzard learn from it going forward?" My take on this is the problem with the seasonal affix is that the powers are pretty boring, but it's really not that bad of a problem to have. It's a pretty good affix. It's nice. I think keys are fun this season. The affix adds a little bit to that, but mostly it just doesn't get in the way of that, which is important for the seasonal affix.
Right.
So I think positives are that it doesn't limit your routing in the same way that Prideful did. You can always skip the Tormented mob if you really feel like you are capable of or ambitious enough. And I think that those are the two biggest things about the seasonal fix, is that it doesn't feel like it's like a pure negative. And it is slow, but you can skip it if you feel like you are capable and competent of enough of a group to be able to deal with it. It's also like a lot faster than last season too, and it doesn't feel like you're playing the seasonal fix. It feels like you're playing the dungeons, which I think is better. What is wrong with it? I think that you're right. I think the powers are just a bit bland, and it doesn't even have to be like massive amounts of damage increase or anything like that. It could literally be something as interesting as like Volcanic Plume versus Necrotic Wound Dagger versus Champion's Brand. Those are actually very interesting choices, because Necrotic Wound Dagger is not an insignificant amount of single target damage. Volcanic Plume, it keeps your mobs grouped up by like a lot, to the point where we saw Obey Alliance. We were talking about Lagwag earlier. We saw Obey Alliance run triple Volcanic Plume in a DOS for the Ardenweald area to just keep all of their birds grouped up. I mean,
that's definitely play.
Yeah, and there are a lot of anima powers that like they use on the Terror Group fight that would be cool for M+. I'm not just talking about like unbalanced amounts of damage. I'm saying like the one that you just drop your threat, right? You drop threat and gain some crit, and you could just change the number of crits so that it's a small amount, and bang, that helps if your tank is losing threat sometimes, right? Or one where it's like you're immune to fear and stun. Like, is immune to fear and stun going to break any dungeons? Or is that just like a cool niche pick you could use in a certain dungeon where there's a fear or a stun that you want to immune, right?
You could use it in Halls of Atonement.
Or
you literally don't ever get stunned.
The one where you have a chance to proc an enrage or magic steal from the target you're hitting, right? Like, I think all of these effects would be fine to add to them in terms of, and it would make some of those picks more interesting. Especially, I think one of the problems with the affix is that if you like the balance of the 4 mini bosses, you've got 2 that are safe to fight with the last boss and also offer bad and uninteresting powers, and you've got 2 that aren't safe to fight with the last boss and that offer the better powers as well. And that's like, I mean, it really kind of means that like in every dungeon you're just like, okay, we'll fight Oros with the last boss and maybe Sagadon, and we'll kill the other 2.
Yeah, pretty much. I do wish some of the worst powers were a little bit better. I think that's my only take on it.
I will say that I think bolstering with the interaction with explosive is very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's cool. And it's not like a big thing. It's just like a couple percentage points of damage, and that is definitely enough for. Yeah, all in all, though, I don't want to complain too much about the affix because it really doesn't do anything bad. It's just a little bit of a missed opportunity.
I think it was good. I think it was a good seasonal fix. I think that all things considered is definitely one of the better seasonal fixes. It may be the best seasonal fix, especially since it doesn't like polarize your dungeons in the same way. I mean, I think the biggest thing is that we see so many different routes this season.
I think we may be looking at like, I think Yoda had this point that the seasonal affix is actually just like class balance is really good this season, and that is a great seasonal affix.
True.
Yeah, which. I definitely empathize with that. I think that if you look, like, I think Awakened was more of a great affix, and I think I also had more fun with Reaping. Like, Reaping was a really fun one too, but this is definitely up there. One of the good ones.
Yeah, I think I liked Awakened just slightly better than this one. They're both pretty up there on my list, though.
All right, next
This one's
question.
good because it's not intrusive. Yeah, it's a different kind of good.
Next question comes from Xander. What is everyone's favorite raid boss encounter from any raid from a thematic that was cool perspective?
I know mine.
My gut answer here is Gul'dan.
Oh,
I love
you
that.
like it?
I love that fight. I like Khadgar
Gul'dan's
being
good.
there like, we can stop him. I know it, and then firing his little arcane blast. Not actually helping or anything, but I thought it was epic.
Yeah,
I
that was a really good one.
I really liked Fallen Avatar.
Okay, that's
I
cool.
think that just like how you would have to juggle soaking the lines in phase 1 and then him like smashing through the floor in phase 2 and it being like a strict damage burn trying to beat the platforms. I thought that was like a really cool designed fight. Like I thought the mechanics flowed really well, and from like a thematic standpoint, I thought that was badass.
As a tank, I would say it was either Argus for me or Unat. Unat was really, really well designed for tanks.
Unat was a beautiful fight. Sire as well. Sire was, I think, a pretty special one for as a tank, but also just in general, that fight was fantastic. Like theme, I don't know. For me, the thing is, there are some fights that the theme, like for me, the theme is, I can't really focus on the theme if the gameplay is bad. So there's some
True.
fights where I may have liked the theme, notwithstanding the mechanics, but it's hard for me to, figure that out.
Blackwater Behemoth, best themed fight of all time.
Nope, wrong.
That was not bad. Terragru, I think also pretty cool fight. Themed well.
Oh, Stone Legion Generals. Oh yeah, that's my favorite.
All right.
So the thematics of Stone Legion Generals. God, I love General Draven.
We'll get me to the next question before I start a fight. Next question comes from Alex, who asks, how do you guys feel about the future of the MDI? Do you feel it will all be done online now, or do you hope for the days of LAN again? Do you feel the transition to an online format has helped or hurt the MDI overall? This one, obviously this is something that Tettles and I participate in discussions about this very question from time to time. I think it's done fairly well online. I mean, obviously, like that wasn't done by choice, right? That was like we were all about to go to LA, and then they shut down everything the first time, and we've been online ever since.
It's nice that the MDI can be done completely remote without like massive ping swings, right? Because like FPS games or even AWC, right? You don't have the tournament realms mixed. Like it doesn't even have to be just like normal esports titles like League of Legends and all that other stuff, where they're actually playing versus other players. At least with the MDI, since they're isolated on a tournament realm on their server and it's like a 1v1, you can like be on your own tournament realm, so you don't have to play with like 300 ping. And so that is actually really nice. That it's one of the few esports that I would say has faltered the least amount during COVID, at least from that POV.
Yeah. I do enjoy casting in person though. It was really nice to get back to in person for Race to World First last time around. In terms of like, I mean, I think it works fine online, but I would love to see lanes again at some point. I think that'd be sweet. All right.
Bradnos, do you see that thing on the right side of your screen?
Hey, can you follow that person up there?
Relevant people. That's the person who asked the question.
Shit.
All right, next question comes from
that.
next question comes from Argy Hots, who asks, "What is one dungeon you could do blindfolded from Legion onwards? And if they could remake a dungeon from expansions past like they did in MoP and WoD, which one would you want redone?" It's kind of a double question. Blindfolded dungeon.
I'm pretty sure I could do Freehold blindfolded.
Yeah, Freehold was something that jumped to mind for me. Maw of Souls, I'm pretty sure as well. That's just like, what, hold W, and then like walk forward, right turn, walk forward, go up the stairs, turn around, kill that boss, turn left, walk forward. Oh, dungeon's over.
Yeah, true. don't fall in a hole on the last boss.
Yeah, that's true. That would maybe be a hard boss fight to do blindfolded. Not
I
sure.
think Freehold. I think Freehold would be very hard blindfolded, just because if you have to get across the bridge multiple times. I think that getting to the bridge would be very difficult.
Well, in this scenario, I'm kind of thinking you have party members that can like help you across those parts, like tell you left, right, you know.
No.
But-
This is all you, dog.
Oh, solo blindfolded? Ooh.
Solo blindfolded? Yeah, because GG WoW did a video recently on the GG WoW YouTube of like Nerf was blindfolded and Dorky, I think. Maybe it was just Nerf. And they were doing a key. I think it was Dorky as well. With their team did it too, and they were having to have their team help them.
Maybe it would be King's Rest because you can't really falter off the path very hard.
Yeah, dude, King's Rest though is like a
I don't
50-minute dungeon,
want
man.
to.
I feel like
I don't want to do that dungeon ever. I would be down to just never do it again. But like you can't mess it up. You just hold W.
Yeah, that's true. It's just a straight
a
line.
linear dungeon. Yeah,
That was the model for every dungeon this X pack.
yeah. All right, let's talk about the next question. If they could remake a dungeon from expansions past, like they did in Mop and Wad, so rehabilitating Scarlet Monastery and stuff like that, which one would you want redone? I feel like a TBC dungeon, maybe.
I think I would just rather bring up like EOA or something. Actually, or like something from not a long time ago. I think that once you start hitting the long time ago dungeons,
Well, but this is like remake a dungeon, so this is like go back there and like just change all the bosses, everything.
Okay.
It's like making it into a viable Mythic Plus dungeon. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they did with Scarlet Monastery.
What did they do in WoD? What was remade in WoD?
Was that?
Oh, it was Upper Blackrock Spire.
Yeah,
Right?
Blackrock Spire.
Oh
Yeah.
shit, you're right.
Yeah, that was cool. Like something like that, I guess. So I didn't play very much between Vanilla and like Legion, but I would say from Vanilla, Wailing Caverns would be pretty cool.
Wailing Caverns was one that I was gonna say. Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, it's just like you go back there. It's just like a nostalgia hit. Do you guys see, by the way, the classic seasonal classic fresh start thing they announced?
I saw people complaining about it.
Classic
As
WoW.
they do.
This is a little off topic, but seems like I think it's actually kind of cool. There's a chance I'd play in some of these seasons depending on which ones they do. So it's a fresh start. The phases unlocking faster, so 12-month instead of 2 years classic. They've moved around the phases a tiny bit. PvP is going to be in there from the start, basically. And then raid bosses are going to have more health, no world buffs, no debuff limit, and restoring. So they're going to have some of the mechanics that were removed during vanilla, I guess, and faster leveling and some quality of life updates as well. So I don't know. This is kind of cool.
I have my answer. I want Sunken Temples so Hakar can fuck me up one final time.
No, man. So many Hakar fights.
One more time.
All right. Let's move on.
We are some classic Andes, if you couldn't tell.
Dude. I might play that new classic thing. I don't know. That seems kind of cool. Faster leveling as well. Could be fun.
Some people were complaining about that specifically. They wanted that removed.
Faster leveling? Yeah, I saw that. I don't know. I mean, I would be most interested if they keep doing seasons like every year or something, and they change. I would love to play one where they just go in and like rebalance all the classes and specs and abilities and stuff.
That would be pretty cool.
Because like the thing that most turns me off about it is all the builds are kind of known and a lot of the specs aren't really viable.
Completely figured out, right?
Well, so a lot of the specs were figured out with world buffs in mind. Without those available, maybe things changed a little bit, but still, yeah, it's pretty known. I guess a lot of the first skills didn't have world buffs as well. Anyways, next question comes from Squirrel News, who asks, Rive. Next question comes from Jason, who asks, not an M+ themed question, but I'll ask anyways. In general, what are the things I should be looking at in my logs from raid night to improve. Is there a time when a raid cooldown might not be necessary? Personal cooldowns? This is a good question. This is definitely relevant.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think no matter what you can do, you can always look at how many times you hit health stone and health pot throughout a raid night. Like you look at all encounters and then look at whichever tab shows that. I can't remember what buffs.
Yeah, or healing and see how many instances of health pot, health potion there are. Yeah. I think that's a good. I think one thing you could do is you could go check your deaths as well and see like what sequence of events caused you to die. If you're looking for damage optimization, you can look at your openers and see if you're always doing the same thing from each pull to each pull, or if you're messing up your opener in any way. If you're a caster, you can look through your just cast timeline and see how many of your casts you're canceling, and then compare that with like the top logs for your spec and see if things look very different on certain fights between, because often they will, like particularly if you're new to playing a caster, you'll find that you're just like not casting or canceling your casts way more often than the people who are doing a lot of damage.
I think that for healers, if everybody is surviving and your HPS is fine and you're like getting good throughput, trying to optimize for damage at that point is also something that you can be looking to do, because like every little damage global does help. Like it really can save you a lot of damage over the course of a fight if you're able to throw in a couple of lava bursts, a couple of flame shocks, that kind of thing in.
Same for tanks. Yeah, you can take off a trinket that's defensive and add offensive if you have like an unused iron bark or unused sack or pain sup that's not being applied anywhere yet. I think for DPS too, if it's between raid nights, you can look at your own logs and be like, am I using my whole class as often as I can? So what I mean by that is, am I using my offensive cooldowns as many times as possible throughout the fight? If that's okay to use them that much and not hold them, because there's some instances where you have to hold them for several minutes, like Kel'Thuzad until recently. But then defensives as well. Like, can I cast Karma or Fort Brew more times throughout this fight effectively to get more value? Because anything you can do for free will help your rate a lot, like that.
Yeah, it's tough because like with defensives, sometimes you want to not be pressing them unless you need them, right? It's like, oh, you save this for if you get targeted by Banshee's Veil in the last phase or something like that. But other times you do want to just be pressing it, like making sure you're actually like if you've got a button you're never pressing, and you can't come up with a situation where you would press it. Like what's the point of having that thing?
There are a few exceptions. Shadow Priest Fade, 30-second CD, 10% DR, and Moonkin Barkskin. Like you can fucking slam those on CD and you're probably fine.
Almost always, yeah. I bet there's a few instances.
Obviously, there are some instances where you would rather hold it. Like I'm not saying that you should slam it on CD, but you'd rather slam it on CD than never use it.
Definitely looking and seeing that. There's another site, wowanalyzer.com. You can paste your log link in there, and depending on what spec you're playing, they have some pretty useful modules that will. It depends on the spec. Some aren't updated and don't really exist, but some will. It'll be like, oh hey, you only kept your judgment on cooldown 68% of the time, something like that. And these are ways that these are things you can maybe just like try and adjust internally the priority of pressing your buttons you have going on in your rotation if you're doing something big wrong like that. Okay, next question comes from Bryna, who asks, if we had cross-faction play, would you go back to Alliance? And presumably this person would, because they are a mechanome infiltrating the Horde in a Pandaren shaman costume, as I have learned from the relevant people tab, a useful thing that is good that is on our screen.
I would play Nelf. I think Night Elf owns.
Yep, I would also play Night Elf. Or Dwarf, depending on the tank.
I would play whatever the highest DPS was for whatever class I was playing.
Patter.
Yeah.
Patter.
Yeah, I would maybe swap around a few characters. I don't know. Mechanome is actually kind of OP, kind of sleeper OP. They have that like ancestral, what is that thing? Nature's, I don't know. When they drop below a certain amount of health, it's like that shaman effect where when they drop below 25 or something %, they heal for a bunch. That thing's pretty powerful.
Mechanomes are kind of dumb thick too.
All right, next question. Oh god, get me out of here. Get me away from Tuttles. WoW has a lot of flaws. This one's from TH, who says, WoW has a lot of flaws that are deserving of criticism, but often it feels like that the criticism is more toxic than constructive, especially on places like Twitter. do you guys agree that the community feedback on WoW game design is overwhelmingly and excessively negative? I think that might be a Twitter phenomenon as well, where just like Twitter is a negative place, and a lot of like the stuff it shows you, the Twitter algorithm shows you is the stuff that you're going to interact with, and like stuff that makes you mad, those sorts of things. Dude, look what's trending in the United States. What a time.
That looks about right.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah, if that's the answer to the question right there. Twitter is just wild.
Twitter is definitely a wild
but
place.
I think it's not just Twitter. Like I think WoW Twitter or the WoW Reddit and is also like this. But it's kind of, I mean, it's definitely not unique to WoW. Like the Path of Exile Twitter and subreddits are much worse actually in terms of just being consistently, saying the game is dead and bad, and all decisions being made are bad. It is. I agree though that there's just a lot of negativity, a lot of unnecessary negativity about the game.
I went and looked at Google reviews of World of Warcraft the other day.
Oh no!
My God, those were a treat. I filtered by 1 star, and I was like, "This is actually just one of the fun." It actually is very funny. But yeah, I would say that there are a lot of doomers. I think that if you're giving criticism and it's more toxic than constructive, you're just giving criticism wrong. Just as a general rule.
I think this is a good thing to take inward for oneself, is to think about is the feedback am I being overwhelmingly or excessively negative? But I think turning it around and trying to change the community on it by anything other than just setting a good example, I don't know how to do that effectively. So I would try not to worry too much about it. But I do agree, if you're ever trying to change somebody's mind on something, which for instance I have tried to do with Warcraft devs on stuff like covenant swapping and AoE capping and conduit energy, pretty unsuccessfully for quite a long time. You try and not just yell about it, right, or say this is really bad, but you try and be like, oh, here's how the game could be so much better. The expansion could be so great, and there's so many great changes. This one thing though, just
it's like minivans with bumper stickers, Shatnos.
I don't know. It's tough though, because if you're I think it's sort of, I empathize with people who are kind of doomery about, especially all the things, all the receptiveness to feedback complaints that people have about Blizzard. It's hard to say that they are not very slow to react to obvious good feedback, especially on stuff like conduit energy. That's just going to be in the game for the majority of the Shadowlands expansion.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's hard to be not negative about things like that. There's in my mind, there's dozens of things that would be easy to change from the Warcraft devs perspective, but I am not a Warcraft dev, so I don't know the full story. But that being said, it's hard not to be negative about it, because I can see them so clearly being the player at the high end of the game.
Yeah, I do think the state of gaming though is actually very much like this. This is not even just a narrative on WoW; it's a narrative on gaming as a whole. If you go to any competitive, not even just competitive games, but if you go to any game, they always complain about balancing. They always complain about just the state of the game. They always complain about, oh, I wish the game was the same way it was back in whatever, right? They always do the exact same. It's very similar, and no matter what game you're actually playing, I think it's just the nature of online games in the year 2021.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot, and years ago when I was new to the game, I would not have known a single one of these problems. And I would have just been like, why do people complain about that? It seems fine, But now I know probably almost every single thing that's wrong with threat and the bugginess of how everything acts in the game and how some abilities just don't work sometimes. It's aggravating once you find out about it.
I will say, though, that my biggest complaint about World of Warcraft as a whole is that their communication, typically with their player base, is not that great. It has been improving a lot lately, though. For what it's worth, it has been improving a lot. But just as a general criticism, that is the biggest problem that I've had with them for a long time, is that there is non-existent feedback or non-existent communication, and we only get any communication from Wowhead data mining. And then you're just like, what?
Yeah.
All right, our next question comes from Nicola, who asks, difference in pug composition between pre-made, or in group composition between pre-made and pug group. I feel like for Pug, Resto Shaman is much better than Venthyr Holy Paladin. Wind Shear will probably be more useful in getting a plus 20 Pug done than Ashen Hallow. This is a very common line of discussion. If you go to like as we were just talking about the WoW subreddit, the competitive WoW subreddit, and somebody will talk about the meta, the instant response will be Venthyr Holy Paladin's not even good in Pugs. Kyrion's better, Resto Shaman's better. And like to some extent that's true. I think the big thing is that just in Pugs, like there are a lot of good tools that a lot of specs have, and the player being well equipped to use them. Like, yeah, Ashen Hallow isn't going to be used to enable big pulls in Pugs, but it can be used to make those small pulls, like just the Incinerator Arcoleth or the hard boss fight or the mini boss at the end of Spires or whatever. Like, it can be really good in those spots as well. Venthyr Holy Paladin doing a bunch of damage and a bunch of healing on those sorts of pulls can still be really valuable. Resto Shaman, though, absolutely. I mean, effective wind shears are good. I think the Venthyr Holy Paladin is bad in Pugs narrative is a little bit overplayed, though, at least from what I've seen.
I agree, but I think Resto Shaman in this case has a lot more healing potential all the time, so they can recover the group's mistakes so much easier than a HPAL would be able to.
I think this is a phenomenon of like people have rerolled the Holy Paladin so that there are more Holy Paladin players, so that there are like a number of more like worse players that are still playing Holy Paladin.
I think that's probably likely as well. I think there's sort of this counter push that builds up against whatever the meta spec is. I remembered seeing it with regards to prot warriors towards the end of BFA as well, where it's just like people were like, yeah, all the prot warriors I play with are really bad. All the Venthyr Paladins I'm playing with are really bad. When it's like, it is because there is that influx of people who are therefore inexperienced with it, trying to chase the meta, which. I don't think it's a bad idea if you were playing the game to play whatever is popular for a season and learn why it's good and learn a new spec. But it definitely does lead to the some training wheels moments, right, where things are rough because you don't really have the full command of your toolkit yet.
Yeah. I do think that Venthyr Holy Paladin is hard to play with at a high level, but at a low level, dude, they're just gonna kill bosses for you. Like, they're actually a fucking solo boss for you with the CDs.
Well, if they know what they're doing, though, right? Like the thing is, like, some people who reroll to Venthyr Holy Paladin aren't really yet in that mindset of like, oh, I actually do a DPS's worth of damage, right? And they're just still like they're trying to heal, but it's like, oh man, all my healing buttons outside of wings are way worse than my Resto Shaman ones are. So yeah. I don't know. I think mainly just like in a Pug situation, if you know how your spec works and if you can figure out the best ways to use it to prevent wipes and to cover the weaknesses that an uncoordinated group is going to have, there's a lot of them are good this season. I think all the healer specs absolutely meet that bar this season. In previous seasons, there have been some where it's like, oh yeah, actually Resto Druid just has like 30 tools to deal with this, and a couple other healers are much weaker for it, but I think this season is not really the case.
Yeah, I did 27 last week with a Resto Druid. It's possible.
Yeah. They're definitely healer balance. It is worse than tank balance, worse than DPS balance this season. Way better than most balance though in most previous seasons for sure.
True.
All right. And on that note, I think we have gotten through all of our questions, which means
all the ones that I selected because I knew that this was going to be infinitely. We got a lot of questions. Thank you guys so much for submitting questions. By the way, I guess we should say that there was a lot of questions on Twitter. Thank you guys so much for that.
If we didn't get to your question, know that Tettles personally decided that you as a person are without merit, and that was the reason that he chose not to include it. And I'm sorry for that.
Week. Ask again next week. We have Q&A every week.
We do. One thing we also do every week is thank our supporters over at the Patreon. They are Paulitoad of US Tichondrias, Hitachi Vibes of US Tichondrias. If the devs are handing out comeback candy, can we get Great Vault Can't Give Me Loot I'm already wearing unless it's a second one-handed weapon? Next. Returning to gainful employment after a week and a half of vacation is pain. Yeah, that's sort of like after this weekend, and we go back to the 10 weeks on the calendar of bad M+ weeks.
Not even knowing if the season will still be in the same season next time it's a good push week.
Yeah, I think it will, but I guess it's hard to know for sure.
Same patch or same season?
Yeah, I think it'll be a new
Either.
patch, same season. Ja, Dratnos' Dino Pillow, Chromed, Trekkie, Never Nude, Chewy. Hot take, GG WoW M Plus Dungeon Betrayal series is the future of MDI. Okay, so for those who haven't seen, this is where was like Yoda and Onesie swapped teams and were the imposter on the other team, trying to like
Kinda sus.
yeah, trying to sabotage their run from within the group. It was pretty fun. it was pretty broken that we like started recording it and just like the first boss room in Necrotic Wake took like 20 minutes because they were just like kept pulling trash in or something, and we had to ban that. We had to ban
That'd
pulling
be
extra
ruling.
trash. Yeah,
I was gonna say you could
mid-run.
easily wipe the group with that every single time.
Yeah.
So did they just like resort to not kicking when they were told to and stuff like that?
Oh, I mean, they were not doing anything useful for the team at all. They were literally just trying to sabotage the run. They were an enemy player in the dungeon.
Kinda sus.
Yeah, they were. Somebody had a good take in the comments as well, which I think it could have been a pretty good checkmate situation. Was playing like Unholy DK in Necrotic Wake as the imposter, and you just mind control one of the ads during the second boss fight and release it right before his cast finishes.
Oh my god.
I feel like that would have been a pretty impossible thing
hilarious.
to beat. Yeah,
Holy shit, that would have been so good.
yeah. Nobody thought of that though. It was it was great though. It was pretty fun.
Shit. That would have been
Yeah, I
so
would have like Tab Moon fired the paralyzed mob in the back.
Oh yeah,
right
that would have
before it exploded.
absolutely happened if they'd tried to paralyze any of them.
MC. That would have been a really good one.
Delete_gaming says the best flirts are all orcs. It's not AMZ, it's AMZ. Salty Senny, Necris, Tankdill, Nevuk, Brad Ceratops, Sinmora, Eevee keeps dying to slappy hands in Mythic Plus. Take Light of the Protector and Frenzied Regen off the GCD. No Trick, I scheduled Heddle's Flame. Dymat, if you don't have Bubble Wand macroed into your abilities, are you even a gamer? Beware. Bubble Wand, I remember for a tank at some point, macroing Bubble Wand into something was like stopping them from blocking or something.
That was my childhood. That was way back in Warlords of Draenor. There was a Bracken Spore incident where the tank of AK at the time had Bubble Wand macroed into like shield block or some shit, and it wasn't able to block at all. And it was just like getting
Nice.
beat down by Bracken Spore, and he got replaced, right? So he got kicked from the guild, and it was just like, yeah, that was
Macro Bubble
Nice
Wand
thing.
at your own peril.
yeah.
Nyx, happy birthday, Curran. Happy birthday, Curran. Gallic,
Happy birthday.
Brusive, Dratnos Rats Abyss. Funglui Muglnraf Cthulhu Rila Wuganagel Ftagen.
Oh, well done.
Insanity. Thank you. Yeah. That's yeah. Xena, we were praying Handy will pump in 9.1. Rogue is now good enough for Prague, but still bad enough to be sat for SLG. Bless up. We probably change this to Kel'Thuzad soon. Dude, Kel'Thuzad reclears the worst part of every week. Red color.
Oh, it's a lot better now. Actually, we haven't talked about that. I actually like it a lot better.
Yeah, it is better than the stop damage one, although it's still like this finicky balancing of enough damage in the downstairs room and enough damage in the upstairs room, and if you're wrong on either side, you wipe.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
true.
But it is
I saw
definitely
someone
much
suggest. I saw someone. Actually, I think it was you and Jack that suggested the 5-second grace period after you phase the boss, where the ads are so kickable, right?
better. Yeah, that's a big part. Is you come up and there's like 2 ads still left and you're just dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would actually fix it a lot, I think. But anyway, keep going.
YouTube.com/workbringer. Walking Atlas had 2 dungeon score, but is 9 out of 10 heroic. Hey, getting there. Horror View as Proudmore. KOZ's mythic team is trash cans and not trash cants. Alphabet Soup. Druid Friends of Evolved Gaming. Number 1 Simpsky for Trelsky. Lolari. Cloric's disrespect for key levels he has yet to complete makes every pull a pull for science. Love those. Love pulls for science. That one dude RP walking in Arathi Basin Comp Stomp. Milk. Narnar, the Marsh Hare. Soji is the number 1 little green man on US Thrall. Tim ist der Gaelste. I hope Tettles ran this through Google Translate and I didn't say something bad, but he absolutely did not. All right, let me just see if I'm dead.
Translate. Detective. Tim is the
Detecting.
hottest.
All right,
All right, it's fine.
we're saved.
It's fine.
All right, that's the end of our Patreon bit. Normally we would do Q&A after our Patreon bit, but Q&A was our whole show this week. So I guess we're kind of just done, as it were. Yeah. Yeah.
Make sure to tweet at Ligma on Twitter.
Yeah, make sure to trending in the United States. It's still
Hashtag
trending.
Ligma.
Ligma. 4,000 tweets right now. So
I heard that you may have a character in your guild now named Professor Lig, and his counterpart and associate Dr. Sug.
Dr. Sug, yeah.
And their mother that they refer to as Ma.
All right, and on that note, we are out of here. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back next week, probably with a guest of some kind. Bye.
Bye.